I sat cross-legged on the ground, my right arm completely numb. The black soul ring hovered in midair, spinning slowly with a heavy, metallic pressure. I didn't hesitate. As the ring descended, a muffled groan escaped my throat. My entire body surged with tension. A massive wave of energy slammed into my meridians. It was cold and thick, carrying the stench of rusted metal and rotting flesh. It forced its way into my limbs, burrowing into my bones. I watched as my skin turned a dull, dark gold. I felt like I was being transformed into a metal statue. The dark gold energy was like a parasite. It wrapped around my green lotus soul power, polluting it and throwing my cultivation into chaos. Visions flashed through my mind. I saw my 7-kill sword covered in rust and cracks. The blade snapped, turning into useless scrap metal. The sword is the man. My grandfather's voice boomed in my head like a thunderclap. I snapped back to reality. I focused my mind and pulled the energy toward the sword. My 7-kill sword phantom shrieked in my soul, refusing to be corrupted. My body became a furnace. The life of the green lotus clashed with the death of the dark gold energy. The pain was like someone was scraping my bones with a hot knife. Dark gold spots and jade light flickered across my skin in a violent rhythm. I was at my limit. Just as my will started to crumble, the tide turned. The corrosive energy stopped attacking my body. Guided by my sword intent, it began to wrap around the veins of the 7-kill sword phantom. It wasn't a pollution anymore. It was a fusion. The pain receded, replaced by a thick, heavy power. The black soul ring settled around my feet, joining the 2 purple ones. I felt my energy surge, jumping straight to level 33. I opened my eyes, a dark gold flash flickering in my pupils. I didn't stand up immediately. I flicked my wrist, and the 7-kill sword manifested in front of me. The blade was no longer just pure silver. Fine, dark gold patterns now ran along the spine and the edge. It looked deeper, more restrained, and far more lethal. The air around the blade felt heavy and cold. I gripped the hilt. The connection felt stronger than ever. The sword was now a true extension of my arm. My grandfather, Chin Xin, stepped closer. He studied the new markings on the blade. Using the soul ring to temper the essence of the sword itself is the highest path, he said. He asked me about the soul skill. I swung the sword, leaving a trail of pale gold light in the air. My 3rd soul skill is called 7 kills, gold shredding bone melting. I walked over to a large chunk of iron ore and lightly touched the tip of my blade to it. The contact point turned gray instantly. The corrosion spread like a living thing, turning the hard ore into a brittle, honeycomb-like mess. I stepped back and activated the skill fully. The dark gold veins on the sword glowed. I slashed again, and the iron ore crumbled into dust with a sickening, grinding sound. I explained the 3 effects to my grandfather. First, it metallizes flesh, making the enemy stiff and brittle. Second, it clogs their soul power, making their skills fail or cost more. Finally, if they are already wounded, the corrosion explodes from within, accelerating their collapse. Grandfather looked at the ruined ore and nodded. It wasn't just a skill, it was a new attribute for my martial soul. Every strike I made from now on would carry this bone-melting poison. I ran my finger along the blade, feeling the sword's excitement. With a thought, I retracted the weapon. The chilling aura vanished, and the sword returned to my soul. "Let's go," Grandfather said, turning toward the exit of the valley. "We've been out long enough. If we're any later, Rongrong will probably come looking for us herself." I thought of Ning Rongrong's pouting face and felt a small smile tug at the corner of my mouth. We left the Golden Stone Valley behind, leaving the silence to reclaim the shadows. Behind us, the iron ore I had touched continued to crumble into dust. It was a silent testament to the power of my sword, now tempered with a lethal, corrosive poison. My martial soul was no longer what it used to be. 6 years passed in the blink of an eye. I stood in the streets of Sotua City. The morning sun was relentless, beating down on the crowded avenues. Shops lined both sides of the road, and the air was a chaotic symphony of shouting vendors, clattering horse carriages, and loud promotional announcements. It was full of the raw, messy energy of the marketplace. Amidst the noise, I felt like an outsider. I was 12 years old now, taller and more sturdily built than most boys my age. I wore simple green cloth clothes, clean and practical. My movements were steady, carrying a composure that didn't match my years. On my back, I carried a girl about my age. Ning Rongrong wore a light pink dress with a thin, airy hem. She was sprawled comfortably against me, one arm draped loosely around my neck while the other held a bright red, candied hawthorn stick. She was eating happily, her cheeks puffed out like a squirrel. Her long, soft green hair was tied back, swaying with every step I took. Her big eyes sparkled with curiosity as she pointed at things, constantly tugging on my clothes to make sure I was looking. As her designated mount, I kept my expression calm. There was a sharp, hidden edge to my features, a lingering aura of the sword. Even in the thickest crowds, I navigated perfectly, avoiding every pedestrian without breaking my stride. Occasionally, I tilted my head to give brief, clipped answers to her nonstop chattering. We were Chunyu and Ning Rongrong, and we had officially snuck out of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile clan. The last 6 years had been transformative. Thanks to the intense training from my grandfather, Sword Daoch and Xian, the endless resources of the clan, and my own natural talent, my growth was terrifying. A year ago, under grandfather's protection, I had absorbed a 10,000-year soul ring from a 10,000-blade sword spirit bird. At only 12 years old, I was a level 48 soul ancestor with 4 soul rings, 2 purple and 2 black. My 7-kill sword had mastered the corrosive properties of the gold-shredding bone-melting skill. More importantly, my 4th soul ring gave me a massive area of effect ultimate that could change the tide of any battle. With the clan's support, Ning Rongrong had reached level 29. She was a genius in her own right, but compared to the monster standing next to her, she seemed almost normal. She had reached the age where she craved adventure, so after a lot of begging and pouting, she had dragged me along to investigate the rumored Shrek Academy, a place that supposedly only accepted monsters. "Brother, you look. What are those colorful things on that stall?" Rongrong asked, swallowing a mouthful of hawthorn. She pointed at a vendor selling cheap soul tool toys. Her voice was full of wonder. "Low-level soul toys," I replied, glancing at them. "For entertainment only. The soul power fluctuations are weak and unstable." My evaluation was precise, but boring. I didn't stop walking. The noise of Suotawa City didn't interest me. To me, the internal flow of my 7 kills sword soul and the rhythm of my soul power were far clearer. I could feel my 4 soul rings hovering steadily over my dantian. The newest black ring pulsed with a sharp, murderous intent that resonated with my very soul. "Oh," Rongrong droned, dragging out the word. But her attention shifted instantly as a new scent hit the air. "Wait, that smells amazing. Is that roasted fire rabbit meat? Let's go try some." She kicked her legs slightly against my sides to urge me forward. "You just finished a candied hawthorn," I said, my voice flat and logical. "Eating roasted meat immediately after something sweet is bad for your digestion. Besides, we need to find a secure place to stay and confirm the location of Shrek Academy. Uncle Ning and grandfather definitely know we're gone by now. Clan scouts might already be looking for us." I scanned the street corners as I spoke, looking for anything out of place. "Ugh, I know. You're such a stiff sword idiot," Rongrong muttered, wrinkling her nose. She tossed her bamboo skewer into a distant trash bin and tightened her grip around my neck. She leaned into my ear, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "But we've come so far already. If we go back now, I'll be grounded forever. Dad might even give me a lecture that lasts days. Since we're out, we should experience how the common people live. Shrek Academy is so mysterious. Scouting it out counts as a mission, right?" She shifted her weight, her voice turning soft and reliant. "Anyway, I have you. You're the level 48 Shinyu. And you have that super scary move, you know?" She caught herself and looked around to make sure no one was listening before breathing the words against my ear. "The 10,000 blades hidden sword. With you around, what bad guy could even get close? Even Grandpa's sword says you're the future leader of the sword path. You promised to always protect me." She had seen it firsthand. When I tested my 4th soul skill, everything within a 30-meter radius was shredded by a storm of sword chi. It was a terrifying, desolate zone where nothing could survive. I took a sharp, quiet breath. My ears felt slightly warm. Over the last 6 years, Rongrong had grown into a beautiful, spirited young girl. In the clan, she was the pampered princess, but her mischievous nature and her ability to make me break my own rules had only gotten stronger. The truth was, I couldn't say no to her. Ever since she was a toddler following me around, calling my name, protecting her had become a habit. It was in my blood. To the world, I was a prodigy. To her, I was just the brother who let her ride on his back and gave in to her whims. Lodging first, I repeated, though my tone had softened. I slowed my pace. Somewhere quiet. I let her stay on my back, acting like a curious bird as she watched the city. I could feel the gazes of the locals, some curious, some kind. A 12-year-old boy carrying a girl through the streets was bound to draw eyes. Rongrong pointed at a vendor selling colorful pinwheels, her eyes curving into crescent moons. Brother, look at that one. Let's buy one, okay? It'll look so pretty on our windowsill. Tell you what, I'll use my allowance to buy you roasted meat later. I looked at the pinwheels spinning in the sun, creating a rainbow of colors. Then I looked at her expectant face. I went silent for a second before turning toward the stall. Just this once, I said. My voice was still calm, but it carried a hint of indulgence. I knew it. Rongrong beamed, her smile as bright as a flower. She started planning which color she wanted before we even reached the counter. I eventually paid for the pinwheel. Rongrong held it up to the sun, blowing on it and watching it whirl with stars in her eyes. It was time to find a place to stay. I walked past several standard hotels until I stopped in front of a place called Listening Bamboo Pavilion. The storefront was elegant, built with light wood and gray bricks. Bamboo wind chimes hung under the eaves, tinkling softly in the breeze. A small cluster of emerald bamboo grew by the door, rustling quietly. It was peaceful. The air here carried the faint, crisp scent of bamboo. The crisp scent of bamboo leaves cut through the greasy smoke of the street vendors. I stopped. This was the place. I set Ning Rongrong down. She smoothed out her skirt, holding her new pinwheel in one hand while her other hand naturally found my sleeve again. She looked up at the sign hanging above us, Listening Bamboo Pavilion. It was an elegant name. She liked it. She said it looked like the kind of place that stayed cool in the heat. We walked inside. A woman in her 40s was hunched over a ledger behind the counter. She looked up, her eyes widening slightly when she saw 2 kids walking in alone. She quickly masked it with a polite smile and asked if we were looking for a room. I didn't waste words. I asked for a quiet, well-ventilated double room. My voice was steady, maybe too steady for a 12-year-old. She stared at me for a second longer than necessary. She looked us over. We didn't look like rich heirs, but our clothes were high quality and my gaze was sharp. Rongrong jumped in before she could ask too many questions. She called me her brother and gave the woman a sweet, innocent smile. She told a lie about us traveling to visit elders on a tight budget. It worked perfectly. The woman nodded and offered us a room in the back building called Bamboo Luck. It faced a private grove. It cost 6 silver soul coins a night, which was pricey, but the environment was worth it. I pulled out my coin purse and paid the deposit without a word. The back building was even better. Our room was on the 2nd floor. I pushed open the window, and a sea of emerald green filled my vision. The wind rustled the leaves, a soft, natural melody that cleared my head. Rongrong propped her pinwheel on the windowsill and collapsed onto the bed. She let out a long, happy sigh. I sat in a bamboo chair by the window and closed my eyes. I began to circulate my power, letting my perception spread out until I could feel everything in the hallway and the courtyard. Rongrong asked when we were going to Shrek Academy. I didn't open my eyes. I told her we would head there in 3 days when registration opened. She gave a little hum of acknowledgement and sat up to practice her own soul power. For a while, the only sounds were the spinning pinwheel and our steady breathing. An hour later, the piece shattered. I felt a wave of soul power, loud and arrogant, crashing through the front hall. Then came the shouting. A coarse, heavy voice was demanding the best room in the house. The innkeeper tried to explain that the best rooms were already taken. The intruders didn't care. They were from Manhwa Academy. They told her to kick out whatever cats and dogs were staying in the Bamboo Luck room. I felt my brow twitch. I'd heard of Manhwa Academy, and their reputation wasn't exactly stellar. The woman tried to stand her ground, but the intruders started making threats. I heard a heavy thud, like someone slamming a fist onto the counter. The argument moved from the lobby toward the back building. Rong woke up, blinking in confusion. She asked why it was so noisy. I told her it was just some loudmouths and signaled for her to stay put. I stood by the window, my mental projection already watching the scene downstairs. 5 young men in moon-white robes were crowding the counter. They had silver cloud patterns on their sleeves. Leading them was a tall, arrogant guy, but the real threat was the man behind them. He was in his 30s with a cold, sullen expression. His aura was that of a soul king. That had to be their leader, Teacher Yi. I looked at him for a split second and then looked away. A soul king was nothing to me. But they were coming for our room. The tall student was already stomping up the wooden stairs, his boots thumping loudly. Rong sat up, her face turning red with anger. She couldn't believe how rude they were. I placed a hand on her shoulder and told her to stay in the room. I walked to the door and waited. Bang, bang, bang. The door rattled on its hinges. The coarse voice shouted for us to pack our things and get out before he lost his temper. My eyes went cold. I hated trouble, but I hated arrogant bullies even more. When I didn't answer immediately, he threatened to kick the door down. I pulled the door open. 3 students stood there, frozen. They were expecting someone they could push around, not a calm teenager with a gaze like a frozen river. Behind me, Rong watched from the bed. The tall student recovered quickly and sneered. He thought I was just a kid. He reached out to shove my shoulder, but his hand stopped halfway. He looked into my eyes and felt a sudden, inexplicable chill run down his spine. His hand hovered in the air, trembling. I asked them if they were sure they wanted this room. The tall guy forced himself to stay aggressive. He told me to move. His 2 friends stepped forward, their soul power beginning to fluctuate. They were both Grand Soul Masters. I looked past them to the stairs. Teacher Yi was watching with a smug, mocking smile. He clearly thought his students could handle a couple of children. I told them the room was ours, and there was no reason to leave. Then I told them to get lost. The tall guy's face turned bright red. He felt humiliated in front of his friends. He let out a low growl, and 2 yellow soul rings rose from beneath his feet. He swung a fist straight at my chest. The other 2 released their spirits, their shadows warping as they moved in with nasty grins. Teacher Yi didn't stop them. Rong started to get up, her face flushed with rage, but I stopped her with a single glance. I had this. My eyes remained calm. There wasn't a trace of panic in them, only a steady, chilling stillness. I didn't move an inch. I didn't even release my soul power. I just watched that fist, wrapped in whistling wind, fly toward my chest. Just as it was about to hit, an invisible, razor-sharp aura erupted from me. It was cold, like a winter gale made of solid blades. The 3 Manhwa students froze instantly. The sneers on their faces twisted into pure terror. The tall student's fist stopped barely an inch from my chest, unable to move forward another hair. Cold sweat soaked his back in a heartbeat. At the top of the stairs, Teacher Ye's expression shifted. His gloomy eyes flashed with shock. This aura wasn't something a normal soul master could possess. Even as a soul king, he felt a sudden shiver run down his spine. I looked at the 3 statues in front of me. Slowly, I raised my right hand, pressing my index and middle fingers together like a sword. I tapped his rigid fist lightly. There was no flash of light and no sound. The tall student let out a blood-curdling scream. He was sent stumbling back as if hit by a sledgehammer, eventually collapsing onto the floor. He clutched his right hand, his face deathly pale. It felt like 1,000 needles had pierced through his bones. A strange, icy energy was eating into his flesh, making it feel brittle and dead. To his horror, the skin on his knuckles was turning a sickly, dark gray. Even a sliver of my sword intent was more than a Grand Soul Master could handle. The other 2 students scrambled back in fear. I lowered my hand and looked at Teacher Yi, whose face was a mask of conflicting emotions. "Can you leave now?" I asked. Teacher Yi's jaw muscles twitched. He stared at me, trying to figure out my background. To suppress 3 Grand Soul Masters with nothing but an aura, I had to be from a powerful clan. He forced a stiff, awkward smile and cupped his hands in a respectful gesture. "A mistake," he said. "All a misunderstanding. I am Yi Zhiqiu, an external teacher for Manhwa Academy." My students were impulsive and offended you. I apologize. He turned and glared at the student groaning on the floor. Apologize to this young brother right now. You embarrassing fools. The students looked relieved to be alive. They scrambled to their feet, bowing repeatedly to me before shrinking behind Yijichio. They didn't even dare to look up. Since you were here first, the room is yours, Yijichio said with a dry laugh. He took one last long look at me, as if memorizing my face, then hurried his students down the stairs. Their footsteps echoed quickly until they faded into the distance. The hallway fell silent again, save for the rustling of bamboo outside. I closed the door. Rongrong jumped off the bed and ran over, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Brother you, that was incredible. Was that sword intent? You didn't even use soul power, and they folded. Just a small trick, I said, shaking my head. It's enough for people with weak wills and no substance. I walked to the window. The bamboo shadows flickered in the twilight. That teacher Yi looked pretty shifty, Rongrong said, a bit worried. Do you think he'll cause trouble for us later? He's just a soul king, I replied. My voice was flat, but my gaze was as sharp as the bamboo leaves outside. If he tries anything, I'll just cut him down. The setting sun cast long shadows across the room. The colorful windmill on the windowsill kept spinning, oblivious. The sharp edge I had shown just moments ago was gone, tucked away as if it had never existed. 3 days later, in the early morning, Rongrong and I arrived at the southern outskirts of Swoto City. We stood before a small village with a dilapidated plaque that read, Shrek Academy. Unlike the quiet we had encountered 3 days ago, there was now a line of about 30 people at the entrance. Most were parents with their children, all looking tense and hopeful. At the front, an old man sat behind a rickety wooden table, yawning as he performed the initial screenings. I scanned the crowd. My senses picked up a few impressive signatures. Near the front was a pair of teenagers. The boy wore blue clothes and looked ordinary, but his eyes were calm and steady. The girl had a long scorpion braid and seemed full of energy, clinging to the boy's arm while looking around. Application fee is 10 gold soul coins. Put them in the box, the old man drawled. The boy in blue dropped the coins without a word and held out his hand. The old man felt his wrist. Age is right. He pointed to a crystal ball. Test your soul power. The boy placed his hand on the cloudy crystal. It erupted in a bright white light. Level 29. Not bad, the old man noted. Show me your spirit. Blue light gathered in the boy's palm. A small, delicate blue grass appeared, marked with faint golden veins. 2 yellow soul rings rose around him. Blue silver grass. The old man's eyebrows twitched, but he didn't say much else. Qualified. Go to the open space in the back. The girl with the braid stepped up next. She paid the fee and held out her wrist. The old man paused for a second when he felt her pulse, glancing at her before nodding. Age is fine. She touched the crystal, and it glowed just as brightly as the boy's. Another level 29. The old man sat up a bit straighter this time. Spirit. The girl smiled sweetly. Her eyes flashed red, and 2 long rabbit ears popped out of her head. Her body became noticeably more flexible as 2 yellow rings appeared. Soft bone rabbit. Interesting, the old man said, waving her through. Qualified. These 2 were Tang San and Xiao Wu. They walked over to the waiting area together. I watched them closely. Reaching level 29 with blue silver grass was no small feat. This Shrek Academy was definitely turning out to be interesting. The line moved forward. People were being rejected left and right. Too old, too weak, or spirits that were just too common. The 10 gold coins weren't refunded, leading to plenty of heartbroken groans from the parents. Finally, it was Rongrong's turn. 10 gold coins, the old man said without looking up. Rongrong paid the fee, using the money I had given her, and held out her slender wrist. The old man squeezed it and nodded. 12 years old. Correct. She placed her hand on the crystal. It glowed with a steady, brilliant light. Level 29. A Grand Soul Master. The old man's voice was still flat. He had seen 3 of them today already, so it wasn't a shock anymore. Spirit. A 7-colored light swirled in Rongrong's palm. A translucent, glittering glass pagoda appeared, about a foot tall. 2 yellow soul rings circled it. The old man finally looked up. He stared at the pagoda, then at Rongrong. A flash of recognition crossed his face. A little girl from the Seven Treasure, Glazed Tile clan? What are you doing here? Rong blinked and gave him a charming smile. Teacher, I'm here to learn. The old man snorted but didn't pry. He waved his hand. Fine. Qualified. Go to the back. Next. Rong let out a breath and flashed me a quick thumbs up before skipping toward the open field. She started looking at Tang San and Xiao Wu with curiosity. I stepped forward. I dropped 10 gold coins into the wooden box. The clink of the metal was crisp and clear. The old man gestured for my hand, and his dry, calloused fingers clamped onto my wrist. He stayed silent for a few seconds, but I saw a flicker of surprise cross his eyes. My bone age was definitely 12, but the density and hidden toughness of my frame far exceeded anyone my age. I felt stronger than most soul elders. He looked up at me. I kept my face calm and my eyes deep, standing there with a steady, mountain-like presence. It didn't match my age at all. Bone age 12. Correct, the old man said, suppressing his confusion. He pointed to the crystal ball. I placed my hand on the blue surface. With a slight thought, I reached into the surging level 48 soul power within me. I treated it like a wild river, taming it and pressing it down until only a single trickle remained. I released exactly level 29 worth of power into the crystal. The ball lit up. The old man nodded slowly. Another level 29. That's the fourth one today. The quality was good, but after seeing the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, a level 29 sword spirit wasn't quite as shocking. Sword spirits were common enough, and reaching this level at 12 was impressive, but not unheard of. Level 29 Grand Soul Master. Spirit? He asked, sticking to the routine. Sword. I replied simply. I didn't summon the 7-kill sword. Instead, I let a faint, condensed edge of sharp aura gather in my palm. I controlled it perfectly. It was enough for him to feel the quality of the spirit without letting him sense the deep, destructive intent hidden beneath the surface. The old man felt the purity of the aura and nodded. Solid foundation. Good potential. You're qualified. Go to the open space in the back. I pulled my hand back and walked toward the others. Once the preliminary testing was done, the old man turned to the blonde teenager waiting nearby. Mubai, take them inside for the second round of testing. Dai Mubai smiled at Tang San. Yes, teacherly. He turned to the group, his gaze lingering for a second on Tang San, me, and a silent, dark-haired girl. Everyone, follow me. We followed Dai Mubai into the academy, which was really just a repurposed village. As we walked, Dai Mubai chatted with Tang San and Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu suddenly glared at him. What are you looking at? She snapped. Looking for another girl to mess with? Dai Mubai frowned. You don't understand. There's a girl here whose spirit is a perfect match for mine. Xiao Wu giggled. Then her spirit must be a female tiger. Dai Mubai rubbed his head, looking a bit awkward. Probably. Rong looked at Dai Mubai, and then back at the cold, silent girl walking behind us. She leaned in and whispered to me. Brother you, that girl is so cool. She barely speaks. Was Dai Mubai looking at her? I glanced at the two of them. I'm not sure, but Dai Mubai has dense soul power and strong blood vitality. He's likely a power attack system soul master. As for that girl, her aura is hidden well, her steps are light, and her posture is stable. She's likely an agility attack system. I was just analyzing their physical traits. I knew nothing about any destiny between them. Oh, Rong said, nodding. Then she looked worried. What's the second test? Is it another exam? Probably not, I said. Since the tests are split, they likely focus on different strengths. Let's just see what happens. We reached the center of a clearing where a middle-aged man named Lu Qibin was waiting. His gaze swept over us, and I felt a wave of pressure. I felt a chill in my heart. This rundown village really was a den of hidden dragons. A level 66 Soul Emperor acting as a teacher? In any other academy, he'd be the dean. I am Lu Qibin, a level 66 Soul Emperor. I'm in charge of your second test, he said. His voice was raspy and cold. The rule is simple. No soul skills. Use pure physical strength to lift a stone block that weighs twice your body weight and hold it for 5 breaths. It was a test of the foundation. He wanted to weed out those who relied solely on soul power but had weak bodies. For a battle soul master, physical fitness was everything. I looked at Rongrong. Her face went pale. The 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda didn't do much for physical strength. The test began. Some passed, many failed. When it was Tang San's turn, he chose a stone lock far heavier than required. He lifted it as if it were light as a feather. I felt a flash of admiration. His body was incredibly solid. He clearly had a special training method. Xiao Wu was the same. Her slender frame hid a surprising amount of power. Then I stepped up. I chose a medium-heavy lock, about 300 pounds. For a level 29 Grand Soul Master, it was enough to show strength without being suspicious. I gripped the handle with one hand. Using my core rather than brute force, I lifted it steadily. I even calmly switched hands once before setting it down. My breathing didn't even change. Lu Qibian's eyes flashed. Good strength and control. Pass. I nodded and stepped aside. I didn't want to overdo it, mostly because I didn't want to make Rongrong feel worse. Lu Qibian turned to her. The girl from the 7-treasure clan? Rongrong nodded quickly, summoning her pagoda and 2 yellow rings. You're an auxiliary system. The requirements are different for you, Lu Qibian said. Show me the effect of your soul skill. Rongrong took a breath and looked at me. Brother, you help me out. Her first soul ring glowed. 7 treasures, turn the tile. 1 strength. A beam of colored light shot into me. I felt a warm, solid surge of power flood my limbs. I flexed my wrist and nodded to Lu Qibian to confirm it worked. That's enough. Lu Qibian waved his hand. Go over there. Your situation is special. You pass. Rongrong let out a huge sigh of relief and ran to my side, patting her chest. That scared me. I'm glad he just wanted to see the skill. Finally, the cold, black-haired girl stepped forward. She chose a lock heavier than her own weight. Her face reddened slightly as she strained, but she held it for the full 5 breaths. When she dropped it, she was panting, but her eyes remained icy. Pass, Lu Qibian announced. Dai Mubai had been staring at her the whole time. When she passed, he seemed to let out a breath he'd been holding. His expression was complicated. Out of the 11 remaining, 6 more were eliminated. Only 5 of us were left. Dai Mubai stepped forward to lead us to the next stage. A proud smile returned to Dai Mubai's face. Congratulations on passing the 2nd stage, he said, his voice echoing with a hint of arrogance. Next up is the 3rd stage. Just a heads up, this one tests your understanding and application of your own martial soul. He paused, his gaze sweeping over us. It lingered on me, then Rongrong, and finally the icy black-haired girl. There might be some actual combat involved, he added. Get your head straight. He turned and led us deeper into the village. The buildings here looked even more dilapidated, but I could feel the residual fluctuations of soul power in the air. They were active, almost restless. I followed silently, analyzing the situation. The first stage filtered for age and power level. The second tested physical foundations. Now, the third was about real-world application. It was a rigorous, practical system. I liked the style of this academy. I glanced at Rongrong. She looked like a mix of nerves and excitement. Then I looked at the others, specifically the cold girl and Dai Mubai. The tension between them was thick, and Dai Mubai's earlier comment about soul matching stuck in my mind. This place wasn't just testing strength. There were layers to the people here that I hadn't expected. As we walked, a loud shout erupted from a side path. Sausages. Fresh roasted sausages. Get your Oscar brand sausages. Sweet, delicious, and they'll fix you right up. They restore energy and soul power. 5 copper coins for 1, or 3 for 10. A man who looked to be in his middle age, sporting a thick, messy beard, was waving at us from behind a cart. The sausages on the grill were glistening with oil, and the aroma was incredible. We had been walking for hours. I saw several of the new students swallow hard, their stomachs clearly winning the battle over their common sense. Xiao Wu's eyes lit up. She shook Tang San's arm. Good, that smells amazing. One chubby student couldn't resist. He fished out some coins and hurried over. Uncle, give me 2. He took a massive bite and started nodding frantically, muffled praise coming through a mouthful of meat. Dai Mubai suddenly stopped. A strange, mischievous grin spread across his face. He reached out and blocked Tang San, who was already reaching for his wallet. Wait, Dai Mubai said. I wouldn't eat those if I were you. Why not? Xiao Wu asked, confused. They smell great. Have you tried them? Dai Mubai's grin widened. Oh, I've tried them. The taste is actually excellent. However, he trailed off, looking at the man behind the cart. Oscar, stop pretending. Make a fresh one. The bearded man froze. His salesman's smile vanished, replaced by a weary sigh. Suddenly, 2 yellow soul rings rose from beneath his feet. He extended his right hand, and, in a soft, high-pitched voice that made my skin crawl, he chanted, I have a big sausage. Yellow light pulsed in his palm. In the blink of an eye, a steaming, fragrant sausage appeared out of thin air. It was identical to the ones on the grill. The entire group went dead silent. The chubby kid who was halfway through his second sausage froze mid-chew. Xiao Wu let go of Tang San's arm and recoiled, her face twisting in pure disgust. She scrambled behind Tang San, her appetite completely gone. The chubby kid's face went from red to ghostly white. He looked at the half-eaten sausage in his hand, then at the one Oscar had just summoned. A wet, gagging sound came from his throat. A second later, he doubled over and started retching. The other students backed away as if the cart were a pile of trash. The looks on their faces were a mix of horror and regret. Food system souls were rare and valuable, but that chant, and the way it was made, was a psychological nightmare. Tang San looked stiff. He quietly put his coins back in his pocket and gave Dai Mubai a look of total disbelief. Even he was shaken by this unique display. Rongrong's reaction was just as sharp. She let out a small gasp and ducked behind me, gripping my arm tightly. That's so gross, she whispered, her face pale. Brother you, we almost ate that. Only 2 people didn't look disgusted. One was Dai Mubai, who was leaning back with his arms crossed, clearly enjoying the chaos. The other was me. When Oscar said those words, I felt a flicker of surprise, but it was quickly replaced by curiosity. Gross? Maybe. But the mechanics behind it were fascinating. I stepped forward, my eyes fixed on the sausage in Oscar's hand. A food system martial soul, I said, my voice calm and neutral. You condense soul power into edible form with recovery properties. That's a very specialized soul. Oscar was looking dejected, ready to dispel the sausage. He was used to this reaction from every new batch of students. But when he heard my voice, so calm, so analytical, he paused. He looked up at me, blinking in confusion. I didn't look at his beard, I looked at the sausage. You said it restores physical energy and soul power. What's the specific recovery rate? How long does the effect last? And does the effectiveness scale with the user's level? My questions were so clinical they caught Oscar off guard. He scratched his messy hair, looking a bit dazed. For anyone below level 30, it recovers about 10% of their energy and soul power instantly. The effect lasts about as long as a meal. As the target's level goes up, the percentage drops, but the base recovery is still there. I nodded thoughtfully. Then, to the absolute shock of everyone watching, I held out my hand. Can I have one? I want to test the effects. Brother you. Rongrong cried out, tugging hard on my sleeve. No, you heard what he said to make it. Xiao Wu stared at me like I had grown a second head. Tang San's eyes widened, but then a look of understanding crossed his face. He realized I was looking past the discomfort to verify the utility of a rare soul. He seemed to respect me even more for that. Even Dai Mubai stopped laughing. He watched me with newfound interest. Oscar just stood there, stunned. Aside from the older students who were used to him, no freshman had ever asked for a sausage after hearing the chant. You really want one? Oscar asked, his voice trembling slightly. Yes, I said, my expression steady. I want to see just how different a food system soul really is. Oscar swallowed hard. He looked at Dai Mubai, who gave a small nod. Oscar took a deep breath. I have a big sausage. Yellow light flashed. A sausage appeared. As he handed it to me, his hand was actually shaking. My calmness was making him lose his own confidence. I took the sausage. It was warm, and I could feel the gentle, concentrated soul power vibrating within it. I examined the color, took in the scent, and then, under Rongrong's horrified gaze, I took a bite. Under the mixed gazes of the others, a blend of respect, confusion, and outright disgust, I took a bite of the sausage. I didn't flinch. I chewed slowly, focusing on the texture and the way the soul power integrated into my body. It tasted just like a real sausage, maybe even a bit more refined. After swallowing, I spoke calmly. The soul power is mild and easy to absorb. There's no burden on the meridians, and the physical recovery is noticeable. The soul power restoration is roughly equivalent to half a tea's time of meditation. It's definitely valuable for quick replenishment during combat gaps. I gave my evaluation objectively, as if I were analyzing a rare medicinal herb or a mineral. I completely ignored the embarrassing chant that had brought the sausage into existence. Rong watched my profile, her expression shifting from horror to genuine curiosity. Is it really that effective? No strange side effects. It's a creation of soul power, I explained, looking at her. Its essence is pure. The incantation is just a medium. There's no need to let it bother you. I naturally handed her the remaining half. Want to try? Set aside your prejudice. It's just a high-quality recovery item. Rong looked at the half sausage, then up into my eyes. After a long moment of hesitation, her curiosity and her unconditional trust in me won out. She took it cautiously, closed her eyes as if preparing for a leap of faith, and took a small, quick bite. How is it? Xiao Wu asked, poking her head out from behind Tang's San. Rong opened her eyes, her face lighting up with surprise. It's true. It's warm. I don't feel as tired. My soul power actually recovered a little bit. Even if she felt mentally awkward, her body couldn't lie. The other students began looking at the sausages in Oscar's hands with complicated expressions. The gross factor was still there, but after seeing me and Rong try it, they had to reevaluate this seemingly vulgar martial soul. Dai Mubai clapped his hands to break the tension. All right, you've seen what it can do. Oscar's incantations are weird, but his effectiveness is legendary in the academy. Once you're in real combat or out in the field, you'll realize how lucky you are to have a food system teammate. He glanced at me and grinned. Now move out. The third trial won't wait for you to digest. Rong stayed close to my side, muttering softly. Brother you, next time you eat something weird, can you give me a heads up? Despite her words, her eyes held no resentment, only a deepening sense of reliance on my calm judgment. I gave a quiet grunt of affirmation, my eyes already fixed on the path ahead. As we walked, Dai Mubai led the way, occasionally glancing back at Zhu Zhuqing with a complicated look, then at me. He seemed surprised that only 5 of us had made it this far, but mostly, he looked like he was bracing himself for a good show. Brother you, Rong whispered. There are only 5 of us left. Is the third trial going to be really hard? I scanned the area ahead, noting the faint traces of soul power collisions and distant shouts. 5 people, I'm used. Rong is pure support, so only 4 of us can actually fight. The academy is ramping up the difficulty. This trial will likely focus heavily on teamwork against a powerful foe. Get ready. Soon, we reached a training ground. A man with a back as broad as a mountain stood by the edge, roughly repairing a wooden dummy. Teacher Zhao, Dai Mubai called out. I've brought the candidates for the third trial. 5 in total. Zhao Wuji stopped his work and turned around. His face was fierce, his gaze heavy as stone as it swept over us. 5. Humph. The quality is good this year, even if the numbers are low. His eyes lingered on Rong and then landed on me. A girl from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile clan? And you. Your blood and chi are restrained, your footsteps are steady. Good foundation, kid. Then, Zhao Wuji dropped the bombshell. The rule was simple. We had to survive against him for the time it took a stick of incense to burn. As he spoke, 7 soul rings erupted around him. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 3 black. A soul saint. Xiao Wu and Rong gasped. Even the icy Zhu Zhuqing looked shaken. A level 70-plus soul saint was an absolute mountain of pressure. Since Rong was a non-combatant, the burden fell entirely on me, Tang San, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zhuqing. Tang San and I were level 29, Xiao Wu was 29, and Zhu Zhuqing was 27. Facing a soul saint, even just for the duration of an incense stick, seemed impossible. Tang San took a deep breath, clearly preparing to coordinate a defensive strategy to stall for time. But before he could speak, I stepped forward. Teacher Zhao. The group stared at me. Zhao Wuji crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow. Oh, speak up, kid. I am Lin Yu, I said, cupping my hands in a respectful gesture. I have a request. The rule is for us to last a full incense stick under your hand. However, I would like to ask for a brief, personal exchange first. Not for the full duration, just a few moves. I want my teammates to see the true power and combat style of a soul saint. It might help them hold out a little longer later. The clearing went silent. Challenging a soul saint alone wasn't just brave, it was borderline insane. Tang Xin looked at me in shock, and Dai Mubai stared as if I'd lost my mind. Zhao Wuji froze, then burst into a roar of laughter that shook the trees. Ha! Interesting. Very interesting. Kid, are you sure? I won't go easy just because you're a student. If you get broken, don't come crying to me. My expression didn't change. In a duel, injuries are inevitable. I only wish to test the gap between us. Zhao Wuji nodded, his eyes turning sharp. Fine. Show me what you've got. The others cleared the field immediately. I closed my eyes, connecting my mind with my inner blade. When I snapped them open, a clear, moonlight-like hum pierced the air. A long, elegant sword appeared in my hand, its blade etched with ancient patterns. The sheer sharpness of its intent made the air ripple. Then, the rings rose. Purple, purple, black, black. For soul rings circled my body, radiating a terrifying pressure that defied all logic for my age. Dai Mubai gasped, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. Tang San's purple demon eye flared to life, staring intensely at those deep black rings, trying to comprehend the impossible power radiating from me. Xiaowu instinctively grabbed Tang San's arm, her face pale. I didn't care about their shock. I gripped the 7-kill sword and pointed it straight at the soul saint. Zhu Zhuqing's body tensed, a faint cyan glow radiating from her as her cold eyes wavered with shock for the first time. Beside her, Ning Rongrong clenched her fists so hard her nails dug into her palms. She was torn between pride and a crushing sense of worry. Ha! Good, good, good. Zhao Wuji recovered from his initial daze and let out a roar of laughter that was even louder than before. Wild excitement and battle intent burned in his eyes. I can't believe I actually ran into a monster like this today. It's worth it. The laughter cut off instantly. Zhao Wuji's expression turned dead serious as a heavy, mountain-like aura began to wake up within him. Roar! A low, deep bear growl erupted from his throat. His body expanded before our eyes, muscles swelling until they threatened to rip his loose clothes apart. His skin took on a dark, metallic yellow luster, looking like solid granite. The Vigor bear. Possessed. Zhao Wuji's eyes turned a violent, brownish yellow. His knuckles grew thick and his nails sharpened into bear claws. Then, 7 soul rings rose around him. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, black, black. The massive soul power of a level 76 soul saint exploded like a dormant volcano. The pressure slammed into my sword intent field, creating an invisible shockwave in the center of the clearing. I stood there, a young sword master with my blade pointed to the sky, facing off against the immovable Bright King. I rotated my wrist slightly, the 7-kill sword humming as it pointed toward the ground. Teacher Zhao, please guide me. Before the words even faded, my first purple soul ring flared with light. First soul skill, 7-kill, gold-piercing wind. The sword let out a clear cry. A streak of dark gold sword chi, condensed so tightly it looked solid, tore away from the blade. It sliced through the air with a sharp, high-pitched whistle, leaving a fleeting black line in its wake as it aimed straight for Zhao Wuji's chest. Zhao Wuji didn't dodge. He clenched his right fist, coating it in thick, earthy yellow soul power. Bring it on. He met the attack head-on with his first soul skill, Vigor Vajrapalm. A deafening metallic crash echoed through the field as the sword chi collided with his fist. The sword chi possessed an extreme piercing quality that ground against his defense with an ear-piercing screech. It held for half a heartbeat before a crisp cracking sound rang out. The thick yellow light on Zhao Wuji's fist was forcibly shattered, leaving a hole the size of a bowl. The sword chi grazed his hand, throwing off a shower of sparks and leaving a deep, bloody gash that ran from his knuckles to his forearm. Blood sprayed. Zhao Wuji's pupils shrunk. The sharp pain and the fact that his defense had been breached head-on sent a shock through him. The piercing power of my first skill was beyond anything he had imagined. My eyes were sharp as arrows. I didn't stop. My second purple ring lit up immediately. Second soul skill, 7 kill, white emperor sword seek. I blurred, turning into a streak of white lightning. A dozen sword shadows, indistinguishable from the real thing, materialized around him. I struck from every direction, high and low, left and right, targeting his vitals at a blinding speed. The air hissed as the blade shadows boxed him in. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of impact were as dense as rain hitting a tin roof. Zhao Wuji shouted, his fists moving like a spinning wheel to shatter most of the shadows. But a few of them moved as if they were alive, curving around his guard to strike his arms, shoulders, and ribs, the places where his defense was already weakened. Fabric tore. Blood splattered. Several more wounds appeared on the inside of his arms. They weren't deep, but the constant pressure was starting to tear gaps in his immovable Bright King defense. His soul power flow stuttered. Good kid. Zhao Wuji's gaze turned completely solemn. My attack power was terrifying, but my combat intuition was even worse. He couldn't afford to be careless anymore. His third and fourth purple rings flashed almost simultaneously. Third soul skill, gravity enhancement. Fourth soul skill, track and locate. A dual restriction slammed into me. My body felt like it had been hit by a ton of lead. Every movement became sluggish and heavy. At the same time, a faint but firm mark of soul power locked onto me. No matter where I moved, Zhao Wuji would know. Now let's see you hide. His voice rolled like thunder. Using the gravity boost, he launched himself forward like a giant cannonball. He was several times faster than before, his massive fists carrying enough momentum to crush everything in their path as they aimed for my face. The wind from his punch was so violent I could barely breathe. The pressure was immense, but my eyes only grew brighter. I had been waiting for the moment he committed to a full-scale attack. My first black ring, the symbol of a 10,000-year soul skill, erupted in a deep, dark light. Third soul skill, 7-kill metal-whittling bone corroder. The world turned gray. A strange sword field filled with the scent of decay and ruin expanded from me, catching Zhao Wuji right in his path. The moment he entered the gray zone, his face changed. The thick light protecting his body began to hiss and sizzle. It dimmed at a visible rate, as if being eaten away by an invisible rust. A cold, sharp chill pierced through his defenses and dug into his marrow, numbing half his body. His soul power became sluggish and difficult to move. What kind of field is this? Zhao Wuji's internal alarms went off. This power didn't just weaken defense, it interfered with his very energy. He hesitated for a split second, preparing to burst his soul power to blow the field away. But I didn't give him a chance to breathe. In that tiny window where he was distracted by the corrosion, my second black ring flared to life. Fourth soul skill, 7-kill 10,000 hidden blades. It felt like the sky itself was shattering. Within a 20-meter radius around us, countless solid, dark gold sword beams materialized out of thin air. They began to spin, cut, and pierce in a violent frenzy. Every single beam carried the armor-breaking properties of my first skill. It was a storm of total destruction. Inside the sword domain, all other elemental forces were suppressed. Zhao Wuji's gravity field flickered and shrank under the assault, its effect drastically weakened. He was trapped at the center of the storm. His protective light groaned under the friction of the blades and the corrosion of the field. His soul power was draining at 3 times the normal rate. Cracks like spider webs began to spread across his immovable Bright King defense. It hadn't shattered yet, but the foundation was broken. You little monster. Zhao Wuji was shocked and angry, but mostly, he was excited. His predatory instincts were fully awake. He knew he couldn't stay on the defensive. Fifth soul skill, gravity squeeze. His fifth ring, another deep black, exploded with light. This wasn't a wide area effect. It was a concentrated, directional crush. An invisible, crushing weight slammed directly into me and the core of my sword domain. I felt like I'd been hit by a massive hammer. My body buckled, and I couldn't stop a mouthful of blood from spraying across the ground. The air around me turned into solid stone. It wasn't just pressure. It was a crushing weight coming from every direction, squeezing the very breath out of my lungs. My internal organs felt like they were being shifted out of place. I could hear my own bones groaning and creaking under the strain. My sword domain, the 10,000 hidden blades, began to falter. The violent storm of sword energy that had been shredding everything was losing its rhythm. Maintaining it felt like trying to hold up a falling mountain. Zhao Wuji felt the pressure lift. A predatory glint flashed in his eyes as he saw his opening. He didn't waste a second. His second yellow ring flared with light. Second soul skill, vigorous Vajra palm. He didn't use his fists this time. He thrust both palms forward with a force that felt like a collapsing tidal wave. Two massive, dark gold palm phantoms materialized in the air, roaring toward me. They didn't just target me. They flanked me, sealing off any path of escape. The sheer vibration from the strike caused my crumbling sword domain to shatter completely. I was at the dead center of the gravity squeeze. I couldn't move. I couldn't dodge. I grit my teeth and pulled every remaining scrap of sword energy inward, forming a desperate shield around my body. The impact was deafening. Even though I used my sword techniques to deflect the brunt of it, the edges of those palms still slammed into me. My blood boiled. I was thrown back several steps, a fresh trail of crimson leaking from the corner of my mouth. My domain was gone. I was wide open. But Zhao Wuji wasn't done. He was a veteran, and he wasn't giving me a chance to breathe. His third purple ring lit up. Third soul skill, gravity enhancement. He focused the weight entirely on me, pinning me to the spot. Then, the air changed. A heavy, ancient, and terrifying pressure exploded from his body. His sixth ring, that deep, haunting black, finally released its power. Seventh soul skill, immovable bright king avatar. He let out a roar that sounded like it came from a prehistoric beast. His body swelled, growing even larger. His skin took on a dull yellow luster that looked like solid metal, etched with dark gold runes. Behind him, a massive, 5-meter-tall phantom of the ancient Vajra gorilla appeared, merging with his body. His defense, his strength, his soul power recovery, everything skyrocketed. He looked like a god of war. This was his ultimate trump card. This was the true power of a soul saint. I felt like a tiny boat in the middle of a hurricane. My soul power was nearly drained. My body was broken inside and out. From the sidelines, I could see the horror on everyone's faces. Ning Rongrong had her hands over her mouth, tears blurring her eyes. To them, I was a dead man walking. Zhao Wuji stepped forward, confident that the fight was over. That's when I lifted my head. There was no fear in my eyes. There was only a cold, piercing intent, a resolve that moved past the fear of death. Now, this was the moment. Zhao Wuji had just finished his transformation. His mind was at its peak of excitement, but his physical defense was in that billionth of a second transition period. I didn't try to fix my broken domain. Instead, I did something insane. I took every last drop of my soul power, my burning life force, and my entire will as a swordsman, and I shoved it all into the 7-kill sword. The blade let out a high-pitched scream, vibrating so hard I thought it would shatter. I fused the armor-breaking laws of my first skill with the corrosion of my third. I compressed them. I refined them. This wasn't just a soul skill anymore. This was the culmination of my entire path. 7-kill Pathbreaker. I whispered. The sword moved. It wasn't a flashy, world-shaking strike. It was a single, needle-thin thread of gray and gold light. It looked like it was swallowing the light around it, cutting through the very fabric of space. I aimed for the one spot where his defense was weakest, the point on his chest I had cracked earlier. It was faster than thought. It was more precise than a heartbeat. It was everything I had. Zhao Wuji's hair stood on end. A lethal chill swept through his soul. He saw the light coming. He knew the danger. But his new form was too heavy, too fresh. He needed just a fraction of a second to adjust his power to block it. That fraction of a second was all I needed. The thread touched his invincible defense. There was a tiny, almost silent pop. In the reflection of Zhao Wuji's shrinking pupils, the gray light tore through his chest like it wasn't even there. The concentrated power of my sword exploded inside him. This wasn't the sound of a blade hitting leather. It was the sound of a massive energy structure being forcibly ripped apart. A hole the size of a thumb appeared in his chest, piercing him all the way through. The light dimmed as it exited his back, but the damage was done. Zhao Wuji let out a scream of pure agony. His massive body was jerked back as if hit by lightning. He stumbled 7, 8 steps, leaving deep, cracked footprints in the dirt. He looked down at his chest in total disbelief. A horrific wound sat right over his heart, the edges glowing with a sickly gray-gold light as the corrosion continued to eat away at his flesh. Blood didn't just flow, it sprayed with every beat of his heart. His lung was punctured. His ribs were shattered. It was a life-threatening wound. I watched him stumble, and then the world started to fade. The 7-kill sword fell from my hand, thudding into the dirt. Everything, my strength, my soul, my life, had been poured into that last strike. My vision went black. I coughed up a spray of blood mixed with bits of internal organs. I felt my body tilt backward, my breath vanishing into nothingness as I collapsed into total darkness. The training ground fell into a deathly silence. The only sounds were Zhao Wuji's ragged, painful gasps and my own faint, dying breaths. Dai Mubai, Tang San, Xiao Wu, Zhu Zhuqing, Ning Rongrong, they all stood there like statues. Their minds were blank. They couldn't process what they had just seen. A soul ancestor had just shattered the ultimate defense of a soul saint. Zhao Wuji clutched his chest, but the blood kept pouring through his fingers, staining half his body red. His face was as white as a sheet, his aura flickering like a candle in the wind. I had done the impossible. Zhao Wuji's eyes, usually filled with the fire of battle, were now wide with agony and shock. He looked down at the blood spraying from his chest, then back at my motionless body lying in the dirt. His throat moved, and a raspy, broken sound escaped his lips. He coughed, spitting out a glob of dark blood. He whispered my name, Chenyu, acknowledging the strike that had broken through his absolute defense. Suddenly, he turned his head toward the edge of the field and let out a distorted roar of desperation. He screamed for Oscar to get out there immediately. He demanded every sausage Oscar had. He didn't ask for help for himself. He told Oscar to save me first. As the shout left his lungs, his strength finally gave out. His knees hit the ground with a heavy thud, and he only stayed upright through sheer willpower and the sturdy constitution of a soul saint. Oscar came sprinting out of the woods, stumbling over his own feet. When he saw the carnage, a dying soul saint and me, lying there with my breath fading, his face turned a sickly shade of green. He stammered, asking what had happened. Zhao Wuji just glared at him, coughing up more blood, and told him to shut up and use every sausage he had to keep me alive. Oscar didn't hesitate. A look of intense focus settled on his face as he began chanting his spirit incantations at lightning speed. One by one, glowing sausages filled with different aromas appeared in his hands. Ning Rongrong was already by my side, sobbing as she reached for me. Together with Dai Mubai, they took the sausages from Oscar, crushed them into a paste, and carefully forced them into my mouth. My body was cold, making it hard for them to feed me. But Oscar's sausages were miraculous. As the medicinal power spread through my system, a gentle but firm surge of life force protected my collapsing heart and began repairing my internal organs. My breathing finally stabilized. I was still unconscious, but the immediate threat of death had passed. Only after he saw that I was stable did Oscar make a few more recovery sausages for Zhao Wuji. The teacher grabbed them and shoved them into his mouth without a word. Between the sausages and his own powerful vitality, the bleeding from that horrific chest wound finally slowed down. However, the gray-gold light of the corrosion remained, eating at his flesh. He was exhausted, barely able to stand. He looked at me, surrounded by the others, with a complex mix of shock, fear, and genuine admiration. He let out a long, painful sigh. He muttered under his breath that I had almost sent him to the afterlife. With Oscar's help, he struggled to his feet and turned his gaze toward Tang San, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zhuqing. They were still standing there, pale and frozen in shock. Zhao Wuji pointed to the bloody hole in his chest, and then to me. He told them to look closely. He called me a monster among monsters. He explained that a soul ancestor had broken a soul saint's ultimate defense not by luck, but through cold calculation and a suicidal level of ruthlessness. He had been pushed to his absolute limit. He admitted, right there in front of everyone, that he had lost half a move to me. Then, he pushed Oscar away. Even though his legs were shaking and his chest was still burning, he forced his aura to flare up again. He looked like a wounded, enraged ancient beast. He pointed a trembling finger at the remaining three. He told them to get on the field. He looked at the incense stick that had long since burned out and declared that the time limit hadn't changed. He grinned, his teeth stained red with blood. He told them that even though he was half dead, he still had enough strength to deal with them. The training ground was thick with dust. Zhao Wuji scanned the 3 students in front of him. Without my sharp sword light to lead them, their momentum had clearly crumbled. He grew impatient and flicked his finger, lighting a new stick of incense. He challenged them to show him what they could do. Ning Rongrong didn't wait. Her 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda shimmered, sending out buffs to her teammates. Tang San's eyes turned cold as he called out the plan. He told them to use harassment tactics and stay away from close combat. Blue-silver grass erupted from the ground, racing toward Zhao Wuji's feet. Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhuqing blurred into red and black shadows, flanking him from both sides. Zhao Wuji didn't even move. He just watched the grass and the girls approaching and let out a dismissive snort. He didn't even activate his martial soul. He simply lifted a foot and stomped. The ground shook. A massive shockwave of soul power exploded outward. The tough blue-silver grass snapped like dry twigs. Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhuqing hit an invisible wall of air and were sent flying back, gasping for breath. Zhao Wuji looked at Tang San and mocked his control abilities, telling him his grass was only good for bundling firewood. He swiped his arm, shattering more vines, and then his 3rd soul ring glowed. Gravity intensified instantly. The weight crushed down on the 4 of them. Ning Rongrong turned pale, her pagoda flickering. Zhao Wuji decided to take out the support first. His 4th soul ring flashed, locking onto her, and he began walking toward her as if the gravity field didn't exist. Tang San shouted for them to protect her, forcing his soul power to grow a wall of grass. Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhuqing gritted their teeth and lunged forward again. Zhao Wuji just brushed them aside like he was clearing branches from a path. He told Xiao Wu her kicks were okay but lacked power, and told Zhu Zhuqing she was fast, but her claws were dull. In a few steps, he was right in front of Ning Rongrong, reaching for her pagoda. Xiao Wu grew desperate. Her 1st soul ring lit up as she teleported to his side, wrapping her legs around his arm for a throw. Zhao Wuji found it amusing. He gave his arm a sharp shake. There was a sickening crack. Xiao Wu screamed in pain as she was tossed aside. Her right ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. Tang San's eyes turned bloodshot. He used his ghost shadow perplexing track to catch her, but the impact made him cough up blood. The incense wasn't even half burned. One was heavily injured, and the others were exhausted and out of breath. Zhao Wuji hadn't even used his full transformation yet. He looked at Tang San holding the shivering Xiao Wu and shook his head. He told them it was boring and they should just surrender to save themselves the pain. Tang San gently handed Xiao Wu to Ning Rongrong. He stood up slowly, all his emotions freezing into a deep, calm pool of silence. He looked straight at Zhao Wuji. He acknowledged that the teacher's strength was overwhelming and that continuing the fight as a group was useless. Continuing the fight would only make my friend's injuries worse. Tang San knew that. He looked at the chaos and made a decision. He told Teacher Zhao that the team fight was over, but he wanted to continue the trial alone. He proposed a bet. He would fight for the remaining duration of the incense stick. If he lost or surrendered, all 4 of them would leave immediately. But if he survived, all 4, plus me, would be officially admitted to the academy. Dai Mubai and Oscar stared, their mouths hanging open. Ning Rongrong's eyes were swimming with tears, and the cold girl, Zhu Zhuqing, bit her lip until it bled. Zhao Wuji blinked, then let out a sharp, angry laugh. He asked Tang San if he was seeking death. He mocked him, asking if a kid with 2 yellow rings and some bluegrass really thought he could take on a soul emperor alone. Tang San didn't flinch. He told the teacher he had his ways, and then he threw a jab. He said if Teacher Zhao was afraid of getting hurt again, he would understand. Bullshit, Zhao Wuji roared. He wasn't about to let a kid insult him. He agreed to the terms, but his patience was gone. The old wound on his shoulder was throbbing, and it made him hate the sight of Tang Sen even more. The incense was lit. Zhao Wuji finally stopped playing around. An earthy yellow light erupted from his body as he activated his first soul skill, the immovable bright king body. He growled that he wouldn't even need his sixth skill. The first 5 were enough to kill Tang Sen 10 times over. Tang Sen bowed respectfully, his 2 yellow rings rising. Compared to the massive teacher, his blue-silver grass looked pathetic. Get down. Zhao Wuji lunged. His fist tore through the air with a sonic boom. A purple light flashed in Tang San's eyes. He pushed his ghost shadow perplexing track to the limit, narrowly dodging the blow. He didn't try to attack head-on. Instead, he flooded the field with blue-silver grass, weaving a massive, distracting web. He used the grass as cover, flickering through the shadows and striking at Zhao Wuji's joints with poison vines. The stings were minor, but the constant numbing sensation started to irritate Zhao Wuji. He grew tired of the game. His third soul ring lit up, gravity enhancement. The pressure on the field doubled instantly. Tang San's movement slowed, his face turning pale as he used his internal strength to keep from collapsing. "I'm bored now," Zhao Wuji sneered. His fourth skill, Locating Trace, locked a yellow light onto Tang San. There was nowhere left to run. Zhao Wuji's speed exploded within the gravity field. His massive palm, covered in the golden light of his first skill, swung down like a falling mountain. It was unavoidable. In that split second, Tang San's eyes flashed with a brilliant gold light. His hands blurred at his waist, moving like ghosts. Asterisk swish. 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 A rain of silver light erupted from his fingers. Flying needles, gold coins, and bone-piercing nails flew out in a technique called flowers scattered by the heavenly maid. They came from impossible angles, shimmering with a faint, deadly glow. Zhao Wuji's pupils shrank. He was shocked, but he didn't stop. He crossed his arms in front of his head, trusting his invincible defense. Clang, clang, clang. Most of the hidden weapons bounced off his golden shroud, but a few managed to sink deep into the light, vibrating with power. Some tiny needles even found the gaps near his old injury, piercing the skin and sending a sharp, stinging numbness through his arm. He was hurt. A Soul Emperor had been wounded by a Grandmaster. "You little brat." Zhao Wuji went berserk. His fifth soul ring flared. Gravity crush. The air around Tang Sen imploded. The pressure became a physical weight, crushing him like a mountain. His bones creaked and groaned. Blood sprayed from his nose and mouth. He was pinned, unable to move a finger. "Die!" Zhao Wuji roared, closing the distance in a single stride. He pulled back a fist glowing with pure fury, aiming to shatter Tang San's chest. Everyone screamed. Tang San's face was distorted by the pressure, blood leaking from his eyes and ears. But the purple-gold light in his eyes was burning like a sun. He forced his internal energy to surge against the crushing weight. His arm, pinned to his side, gave a tiny, impossible tremor. A single speck of golden light, thin as a hair, shot from his fingertip. It was silent. It was invisible. It curved around Zhao Wuji's massive fist and aimed straight for the vulnerable spot behind his left shoulder, right where the old wound lay open. The dragon scale needle. There was a tiny thud. Zhao Wuji's world-shattering punch stopped an inch from Tang San's chest. Ag! A scream of pure agony tore from the teacher's throat. His massive body shook violently. The soul power in his right fist vanished. He grabbed his left shoulder, his face contorting as veins turned purple on his forehead. Cold sweat poured down his face. It wasn't just a sting. It was torture. The needle had entered his flesh and immediately curled into a spiral, dragging his muscles and nerves along with it. It was like a drill made of fire twisting through his bone marrow. The gravity field collapsed. Tang Sen was thrown back by the shockwave, hitting the ground hard. He coughed up mouthfuls of blood, his face as pale as paper. He was on the verge of passing out, but he forced his eyes to stay open. In the incense burner, the final bit of ash fell. Time was up, and the field went silent, save for Zhao Wuji's ragged, pained breathing and Tang San's wet coughs. Zhao Wuji slowly pulled his hand away from his shoulder. His face was a mask of pain, rage, and disbelief. He looked at his trembling hand, then at the boy struggling to stand. He looked at the tiny glint of gold on Tang San's finger. What? What hellish thing is that? He rasped. It had broken his defense. It had hurt him more than any weapon he'd ever faced. Teacher Zhao, time is up, Tang San whispered, his voice thin as a thread. Zhao Wuji's chest heaved. He stared at Tang San for a long time, his teeth clenched against the pain. Finally, he hissed out a single word. Fine. He turned to Dai Mubai and Oscar, who were standing there like statues. What are you looking at? Oscar. Sausages. Oscar jumped and scrambled to produce his recovery sausages. He ran over and stuffed one into Tang San's mouth first. Tang San swallowed it, his breathing leveling out as Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing helped him up. Tang San took another sausage and walked toward Zhao Wuji. The teacher was still pale, trying to use his soul power to numb the pain. Teacher Zhao, Tang San said weakly. That needle requires a specific technique to remove. If it stays, it will keep twisting and damage your meridians. Please let me take it out. Zhao Wuji glared at him, then gave a rough grunt of consent. He couldn't get the damn thing out himself. His own soul power just made it twist harder. Tang San stepped forward, his fingers dancing over the teacher's shoulder. He pinched the nearly invisible tail of the needle and twisted it with a unique rhythm. A moment later, a tiny, curled golden wire soaked in blood was pulled free. The agony vanished instantly. Zhao Wuji's face regained some color, though he still looked sour. He rotated his shoulder. It was sore, but the torture was over. He looked at the boy who had just humbled him. His eyes were complicated, full of frustration, but no longer filled with killing intent. Trial over, he barked, his voice stiff. All four of you, plus the kid with the sword, you all pass. Report here tomorrow. Without another word, he turned and stomped away. I noticed his left shoulder was still a bit stiff as he disappeared into the shadows. It was late now, and the outskirts of Saw City were swallowed by darkness. I walked beside Tang San, supporting him. I could feel him shivering. His internal energy was working overtime to repair the damage from the gravity crush, but the exhaustion was deep. He walked slowly, his steps precise, as if he were still calculating the distance of every stride. Even at his limit, he was terrifyingly composed. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing were carrying Xiao Wu between them. Xiao Wu's ankle was swollen and purple. She was biting her lip, refusing to make a sound, her brow furrowed in pain. She didn't want us to worry. I looked at Ning Rongrong. Her eyes were red, and her mouth was set in a hard line. Seeing her like that made my heart ache just a little. Dai Mubai led the way. The golden-haired senior looked like he'd been hit by a truck, and I couldn't blame him. He'd expected a simple demonstration, but instead, he'd seen my sword shatter the teacher's defense, and then he'd watched Tang San make a soul emperor scream in pain. Tang San, Dai Mubai finally said, his voice breaking the silence of the night. That last thing, the thing that hurt Teacher Zhao. What was it? I leaned in, curious myself. Tang San coughed, his voice raspy. Just some trinkets from home for self-defense. Nothing special. He didn't give anything away. Dai Mubai's mouth twitched, but he didn't push it. He just kept walking, but I could feel his gaze lingering on us. Everything was about to change. Dai Mubai's gaze shifted between me and Tang San. He didn't say a word, but I could tell he was reassessing everything he thought he knew about us. In this academy, nobody lacked a sharp eye. Ning Rongrong's eyes were still rimmed with red. As the young mistress of the seven-treasure glazed tile clan, she used to throw a fit if she so much as scratched a finger. Now, she was gritting her teeth, helping her injured companion while tears pooled in her eyes. She refused to let them fall. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling with a sob. Tang San, Xiao Wu, it's all my fault. It's not your fault, Rongrong, Xiao Wu said, forcing a smile that looked a bit twisted from the pain. That big stupid bear was just too strong. He wasn't being reasonable at all. Besides, third brother did it to protect us. Tang San didn't say much. He just gently squeezed Xiao Wu's hand. That simple gesture held so much concern, guilt, and an unshakable resolve. I looked away, staring into the deepening night. My mind flashed back to a scene from years ago. It was the back mountain of the seven-treasure glazed tile clan. A little girl in a pink dress was tugging at my sleeve, her voice high and sweet. Brother Chinyu, my knee hurts so much. Back then, I was clumsy. I could only pull out some ointment and apply it in silence. My grandfather watched from the side, sighing as he shook his head. Little you, if you're like this, how are you ever going to coax a girl later in life? I hadn't answered him. I knew that sometimes companionship didn't need words. Zhu Zhuqing walked beside us in silence. This girl in black always carried an air of deliberate coldness, but during the fight, every one of her strikes had been precise and fierce. Even now, the way she supported Xiao Wu was incredibly careful. She wasn't cold. She just wasn't used to expressing herself. Her actions spoke for her. We're here, Dai Mubai said, snapping me out of my thoughts. In front of us stood several old houses made of wood and stone. On the largest one, a crooked wooden sign hung by the door. The words Shrek Academy looked almost ridiculous under the moonlight, yet they carried a strange sense of grit. Rongrong's footsteps faltered. I didn't need to look to know she was trying to hide her shock, and maybe a little disappointment. Growing up in luxury, she'd never seen a place this run down. But I knew she wouldn't complain. She had made a promise. When we were 6, before we set off on our separate paths, she had grabbed my hand. Her eyes were bright, like they were filled with stars. Brother Chinyu, Rongrong will definitely follow right behind you. That's the freshman dormitory, Dai Mubai said, pointing to an even shabbier building. Conditions are basic. Boys in this one, girls in that one. We'll figure out the specifics tomorrow when everyone is here. He paused, his eyes lingering on Tang, San, and me for an extra second. We're classmates now. Thank you, senior. Tang San nodded. Dai Mubai waved a hand and walked away. His silhouette stretched long across the ground. I understood his mood. It takes time to adjust when the newbies you expected to mentor suddenly become peers you have to take seriously. Oscar approached us, ruffling his messy hair, his peach blossom eyes gleaming. Come on, future monster juniors. Don't look at how old the place is. These beds are solid. They're great for fixing weak backs. He was trying to lighten the mood, but it didn't work. Everyone was exhausted, body and soul. The dormitory smelled of moldy wood and dust. It was just 2 large rooms with hard wooden beds and thin mats. Oscar found some spare bedding and handed it out. I took a set that was old but clean and chose a bed by the window. I sat cross-legged, closing my eyes to regulate my breath. The 7-kill sword chi flowed slowly through my veins, repairing the tremors I'd felt from clashing with Zhao Wuji. I'd used 70% of my power in that strike. I only wanted to test a Soul Saint's defense, but I hadn't expected to actually break it. Zhao Wuji's immovable Bright King body was tougher than the rumors, but my sword was sharper. Oscar was helping Tang San make his bed, his voice low. Tang San, that last move against Teacher Zhao, what was that? I saw a flash of gold, and then his face turned green. Tang San remained vague. Just luck. Teacher Zhao was careless. Luck? No, that wasn't luck. That was terrifyingly precise timing. And those gold needles, they carried a strange energy. There was no soul power fluctuation, yet they could pierce a Soul Saint's defense and cause lasting pain. That was no mere family trinket. Will Teacher Zhao try to settle the score later? Tang San asked. Oscar chuckled. Don't worry. He's got a temper, but he keeps his word. Though, you might get special attention in his combat classes from now on. Tang San went silent. I could imagine his stress. Exposing your hidden cards always comes with a risk. Night deepened. Oscar was already snoring softly. Tang San's breathing became rhythmic, but I could feel his consciousness was still active. His internal technique hadn't fully stopped. I needed less sleep than most people. Moonlight spilled through the broken window, casting mottled shadows on the floor. I sat there, sensing the night air of the academy. In the distance, I felt several powerful auras. One was particularly thick and heavy, like the earth itself. That was Zhao Wuji. He was still awake, his aura fluctuating as if he were replaying the day's battle. Another aura was sharp and agile, likely the dean, Flinder. From the girls' dorm, I felt a faint ripple from Rongrong. She wasn't sleeping either. Maybe she was adjusting to the new environment, or maybe she was thinking about everything that had happened. I remembered the night I first taught her to recognize the stars. We had snuck out of the sect and lay on the grass of the back mountain. She pointed at the sky, asking me the names of every star. I answered them one by one until she fell asleep. I carried her back, and she mumbled in her sleep, "Brother Chinyu, let's go somewhere far away to watch the stars together someday, okay?" I had said yes. I still remembered that promise. At midnight, a subtle but terrifying aura swept past the edge of the academy. My soul shuddered. I snapped my eyes open. The 7-kill sword within me hummed a warning. That aura was monstrous. It wasn't at the level of a soul saint. It might even be beyond a soul dola. It appeared suddenly and vanished just as fast, as if it were only passing through. But then, Zhao Wuji's aura moved. He vanished from his room, racing toward the outskirts of the academy. I frowned. What was happening? After a moment of hesitation, I pushed my perception to the limit. The 7-kill sword didn't just give me attack power, it made me sensitive to energy fluctuations. In the distance, two auras clashed. One was Zhao Wuji's, heavy as the earth. The other was deep as an abyss, domineering enough to make the heart skip a beat. The fight ended quickly. By the time I locked onto the area, everything was over. Zhao Wuji's aura became chaotic and weak. That terrifying presence vanished completely, as if it had never existed. I pulled back my senses and closed my eyes again, my fingers unconsciously tracing the wooden bed frame. Who was that? Why look for Zhao Wuji? From the result, Zhao Wuji had been crushed. Utterly crushed. There were only a handful of people in this world who could defeat the immovable Bright King so easily. I thought of Tang San's golden needles and the flicker in his eyes when he mentioned his family. A guess formed in my mind, but I didn't dig deeper. Some things are better left unknown. But I knew I had to be more vigilant. This academy wasn't simple. And Rongrong was here. The girl I once needed to protect, and still wanted to protect, was here. About an hour later, Zhao Wuji's aura reappeared in the academy. He was much weaker than before, carrying obvious injuries. But at least he was alive. Ning Rongrong returned to her room, her aura remaining unsettled for a long time. I sat back down and entered a meditative state. The hum of my 7-kill sword slowly faded, but that terrifying presence I had felt earlier remained seared into my senses. This academy was more complex than I thought. Outside the window, the moonlight seemed to grow colder. My thoughts drifted back to a long time ago. I remembered a little girl grabbing the hem of my robe. She looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Brother Linyu," she asked softly, "will you always protect Rongrong?" Back then, I didn't give her an answer. I only patted her head. But now, in this dilapidated dormitory on this dangerous night, I finally gave that late answer in my heart. I will, whether you need me to or not. In another corner of the academy, a lamp flickered in Zhao Wuji's room. It illuminated a face that was black and blue. The new injuries from tonight completely covered the scratches and needle marks from earlier today. His face was barely recognizable. He sat in a chair, his hand trembling as he reached for a wine cup. It wasn't out of fear. It was pain. Every bone in his body ached. Every inch of muscle protested. That man in black was a monster. He had pinned a soul saint to the ground using nothing but raw strength. 2 spirit rings. Blue silver grass. Zhao Wuji muttered to himself. But the thing he couldn't stop thinking about wasn't the golden needles from the afternoon. It was that massive hammer. It looked heavy enough to shatter mountains. He should have realized it sooner. The surname Tang, those strange hidden weapon techniques, and that terrifyingly calm calculation during battle. Who else could it be but that man's son? Zhao Wuji smiled bitterly and downed the wine. The spicy liquid burned his throat, bringing a tiny bit of warmth. He touched his swollen cheek and then his ribs. At least 2 were broken. Luckily, the attacker showed some restraint and didn't crush his internal organs. Damn it, he cursed under his breath. There was no anger in his voice, only a sense of helpless resignation. Hit the kid, and the old man shows up. And it had to be the oldest monster of them all. He remembered the man's final words. "Take good care of my son from now on." The tone was calm, but it was more chilling than any direct threat. Zhao Wuji drained the rest of the wine. This year's monsters weren't just difficult to handle. They came with backgrounds that could kill a man. The heiress of the 7 treasure glazed tile clan. The son of the clear sky Dola. And then there was that Lin Yu, whose sword intent was unnaturally pure. Wait, Zhao Wuji paused. Lin Yu, surname Lin, the 7-kill sword. Was he a descendant of the sword Dola, Chinexian? He had entered the academy right alongside Ning Rongrong. Zhao Wuji felt his headache getting worse. The web of connections behind these children was enough to scare anyone to death. The first ray of morning light pierced the darkness. Zhao Wuji looked at his wretched reflection in the mirror and suddenly grinned. The movement pulled at his wounds, making him hiss in pain, but he didn't care. This was going to be interesting. I finished my morning practice as the sun hit the roof tiles. I relaxed my grip, letting the phantom image of the 7-kill sword fade back into my body. When I returned to the dorm, Tang San was just pushing the door open to look for the girls. Going to find Rongrong? Tang San asked. He had noticed the unspoken bond between us yesterday. I nodded slightly, and we walked toward the girls' dormitory together. As we passed the open field used as a playground, Tang San's gaze lingered on my right hand. The memory of that sharp sword chi tearing through a Soul Saint's defense was clearly still fresh in his mind. Before we reached the building, we heard Ning Rongrong's soft voice from the second floor. Xiao Wu slowed down. I know. Xiao Wu's voice was bright and cheerful. We waited for a moment until Xiao Wu appeared at the stairs, supported carefully by Rongrong. Zhu Zhuqing followed silently behind them. Third brother, Brother Linyu. Xiao Wu's eyes lit up. Rongrong's eyes met mine for a brief second. We understood each other instantly. It was a silent understanding built over years. The 5 of us headed toward the village canteen. The village was just waking up, and the dirt paths were damp with dew. Rongrong naturally walked half a step behind me. Tang Sen saw this, and seemed to confirm his suspicions. As we reached an old locust tree at the village entrance, a loud argument broke the silence. Let go. I told you it's over, a girl sobbed. No way. Just give me one last chance. Really, the last time, a boy's voice insisted. We looked over and saw a short, chubby boy with red hair tugging at a girl dressed like a villager. She looked about 15 or 16, her face covered in tears as she struggled to get away. I frowned. I could feel a restless, burning fire energy inside the boy, churning out of control. Stop it, Xiao Wu shouted, her face darkening with anger. The red-haired boy, Ma Hongjun, finally noticed us. He turned around, and when his eyes landed on Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing, a flash of intense heat erupted in his gaze. His breathing became heavy. It seemed his evil fire hadn't been vented last night, and seeing them nearly pushed him over the edge. What are you looking at? Xiao Wu snapped, stepping forward. Tang Sen held her back. Ma Hongjun saw our simple clothes and took us for ordinary travelers. The fire in his heart made him reckless. What are you acting all high and mighty for? He sneered, his eyes still glued to Rongrong. What do you know? When my fire comes up, if I don't find a woman, I'll die. You want me to just die? His words were crude and disgusting. Rongrong's face fell. As the young miss of her clan, she had never heard such filth. She instinctively looked at me. My gaze turned ice cold. You. Xiao Wu was furious, but Tang Sen kept her steady. Seeing that no one had attacked yet, Ma Hongjun grew even bolder. He grinned at Rongrong and Xiao Wu. Hey, little sisters. Do you think I'm handsome? Want to be my girlfriend? No problem. I don't have much, but I've got plenty of. Before he could finish, a murderous sword intent exploded from me. It wasn't soul power. It was pure, raw killing intent. It felt like a frozen blade pressed against a throat. Ma Hongjun froze instantly. He didn't see me move, and he didn't feel a soul power fluctuation, but the sheer sharpness of the intent forced the fire in his body to retreat. Say that again, I said. My voice was calm, but it carried a chill deeper than midwinter. Ma Hongjun was both shocked and enraged. Kid, you're a soul master too? You want to play hero? Phoenix possess. Purple-red light flared. Feathers sprouted on his arms, and a crest formed on his head. It was a top-tier beast soul, the evil fire phoenix. Xiao Wu and Rongrong couldn't help but giggle. That's a phoenix? Xiao Wu blurted out. It looks like a fat grass chicken. Who are you calling a chicken? Ma Hongjun roared. He spat out a burst of purple-red flame straight at Xiao Wu. I raised my right hand, condensed a sliver of sword chi at my fingertip, and flicked it through the air. The flame was sliced clean in half. The sword chi didn't stop, whistling past Ma Hongjun's cheek and cutting off a lock of his red hair. If you move again, I said, I don't mind leaving you here forever. Ma Hongjun felt a chill run through his entire body.